Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Dr. Abdul Qatranji. It's great to see everybody on another episode of Muslim Take. It's been some time, but now we went from the winter to the summer. And just as the winter had a whole bunch of events, the summer is now heating up. And subhanAllah, as many of you know, Israel struck Iran, striking many facilities, including nuclear facilities, including targeting individuals within Iran. And this now adds a new dimension to the ongoing wars that are occurring around the state of Israel. Ahmed, what do you think? This is.
I was just amazed by how CNN, the headline on CNN, it's preemptive strike. So it's like something just started yesterday, and this is how they play with words.
Yes.
I know people like us, probably people like watching us, they are so familiar with the Middle East politics. But imagine someone in a remote area, a white person or an Asian person or anyone that's not really familiar with the Middle East politics, and they see this headline, they try to shape how you react to things.
No question.
And that's
no question. I mean, the idea of preemptive, right? They've been announcing this for at least a month and a half. There's actually been phone calls between Netanyahu and Trump. Trump, it seemed fairly insistent that he didn't want to see anything like this happening. So it really puts America in a difficult position. Rex, this is, we've been discussing the rise of Trump in international politics, the impact of Trump policy globally. How does this, after the recent visit to Saudi Arabia and all the gains that he had, how does this play?
Well, I actually think Donald Trump is not too happy about what's going on in the Middle East right now. And that is reflected in the statement that Marco Rubio and the Department of State put out, saying that Israel took a unilateral decision to strike Iran and the United States is in no way involved in any of this. And they said that the priority of the United States of America is to protect American citizens and U.S. troops in the region. So to me, this speaks volumes by breaking policy on past U.S. relationship developments with Israel with regards to Middle East wars. This is showing that, you're alone in this. We did not give you the green light, nor do we intend on giving you the green light. There was no exaggerated rhetoric yet, at least.
But that focused only on the optics. But do you think they can even move something like that without the green light?
So I'm sure.
I think they can. I mean, to be totally honest, this is not the first time Israel acts without America's consent.
So I think
more often than not, the tail is wagging the dog.
I think Israel is actually backed into a corner after the recent Middle East trip, and they are picking up on the trend that the United States is slowly trying to disassociate itself from the Israel-centered politics in the region to a more regional-centered policy approach, cultivating local partners like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia, like Qatar, so on and so forth. We've seen them break policy again and again with Israel with regards to Syria and the sanctions, for example.
Yeah, that's correct. But
right?
again, what I'm saying is, I don't think they will go as far as striking Iran without a consent, without a green light from the United States. They need the logistics. They need the satellites. They need the help from the American army and American, all the intelligence systems. So I don't think they can do it without a green light.
So I don't know if the details of how much aid the United States has provided in this operation against Iran. There could have been coordination in the back scenes. There could have been strategic aid happening from U.S. forces in the region.
But 2 days ago, they asked people they were evacuating
correct.
the embassy.
So the United States was made aware, yes. Yeah. And even today, Donald Trump said that Israel did let him know that they plan on conducting a strike.
That's going to tell you. But let me tell you something.
But he was not in favor.
That's going to tell you then if America's announcing they're clearing out, that means Iran knows that something's going to happen too.
Right.
So what do you? Okay. So here's what I don't understand. 9 areas were struck in Iran.
Correct.
Each one requires at least a sortie of 3 to 6 planes to each target, coming across several countries, including Jordan and Iraq, to get to Iran. Iran is not a little country. This isn't like, Lebanon, you know what I'm saying, where it's a straight line. You're going all over, zigzagging. I mean, so the logistics, I agree with you, but that also has to kind of tell you, is Iran a paper tiger?
Right.
No, what are you doing? They're not a rocket, they have, God knows, they have a fairly sizable air force. God knows that they were in Syria, hitting Syrians fairly frequently, so they couldn't figure out how to defend themselves in Iran. I mean, that's to me. To me, there's so much more to this than just simply like, did Israel know and did America know? Personally, I think that I personally think that Iran is not as strong as it tries to advertise.
No, it's not. It's not. Definitely, it is not strong. But I'm talking about. Yeah, in optics, America is dissociating itself from what Israel is doing, which is, you can tell this is a change from or breaking away from Biden's policy. But still, we understand that this is in complete cooperation, and we're talking about the effect of this, effect on economy, effect on American citizens, effect on us. And if this is Israel, I mean, how long and how many wars Israel wants to survive in this area? I mean, for years and years, this area where I was born and raised there in the Middle East, it's like cursed with wars after wars after wars. It just too much, and I don't know. I don't see this is good even for the United States. I don't see good for the American citizens. But we still, as a country and as a government, allowing this to happen. I believe that if Donald Trump wanted this to stop, he could have stopped it. He could have told him, no, do not strike.
I don't know. I personally, I believe Trump is very much America first. I think when you look,
how is that America first?
Because they were having a conference in Oman in 5 days. My point is, like, I'm not telling you that there aren't. Listen, America is not a yacht.
Yes.
It's a massive cruise ship, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. I mean, there's so many people. I mean, by the time information goes from the engine room to the captain, even with technology, it takes time.
Definitely.
I'm not like, but to me, I'm a firm believer that the United States of America knows that its interests, and we've seen this in the past 8 months. We may disagree with little things there, but in general, you had the president of the United States engage in the Middle East without visiting Israel first, right?
Yes.
Never happened in a long time. Okay, not that it's never happened before, but it hasn't happened in a long time. And making deals with Turkey, with the Houthis. He negotiated with Hamas. To release the American hostage. He's negotiated. He made deals which he gained $600 billion in trade with Saudi Arabia and God knows how much with Qatar. So I really believe that the United States now, knowing that there's a huge market expansion and its entry into the Middle East is essential for its products and for its growth of the economy. I
think there's a good balance to strike here between what we're discussing, and that balance is, in my opinion, in the fact that the United States has begun detaching from the Israel first policy in the Middle East.
I agree.
That being said, that detachment is not complete. So coordination is still happening. Israel is still receiving American weapons, American dollars, taxpayer money being funded. Coordination is taking place. This is undisputed, without a doubt. I don't disagree with that assessment. But I will also say that there are internal administration policies and politics, right now happening within the Trump administration. I believe there's a civil war between two camps. The America First, isolationist, trade, no wars camp, and the war hawk camp. Both of which are competing for influence and competing for Trump's ear. This is what I think is happening currently as we speak. We've seen it unfold with the firing of Mike Waltz. We've seen it unfold with reports about Pete Hegseth, the Houthis, the Atlantic leak that happened.
You're right.
So there's a lot of interesting dynamics taking place with the United States right now.
And we see a lot of tweets coming from
correct,
on people that you never imagined that they will go out like this. MTG, for example, talk about we don't want to strike Iran for Israel, and all these changes that's happening. Definitely there is changes that are happening. I don't know if they are enough, or I don't know what will be the future of these changes, but we still, going back, we still have Gaza, we still have people are starving to death in Gaza.
Correct.
And if the news, Egypt today took a step to block any activist that's actually flying to Egypt. This caravan that was coming from Tunisia, all the way, 7,000 people driving all the way, started from Tunisia, all the way through Libya, and they were trying to go to Egypt. Some activists actually from North Africa, they flew to Egypt to meet the caravan coming from Tunisia. Now the caravan, Egypt told them openly, we will not let you come in. But they even went more than that, and they asked the Haftar in Libya to stop the caravan. So now, as of today, the caravan was stopped in Libya, and Egypt detained and deported all the activists from all over the world, from Europe, from North Africa, that came to the caravan. So even this hope, we've seen what happened to the flotilla, what happened to them, then what happened to the people coming through land, not through sea. So what do you think? I mean, Trump started good, at least started to make some changes to how we approach the Gaza situation. But the overall picture, if there is any real change that you think that's happening?
Can I address this?
Yeah, definitely.
I believe Trump came in with a lot of zeal about what to change and how to change things. Gaza is one thing. Doge is another thing. We've seen that recent fallout that he had with Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
And I think reality is smacking him hard in the face. That there is a complex machinery that is operating very heavily that he has to carefully manage so to not upset that system and not compromise that system. And I think that's becoming more evident to him.
Well, again, we're talking the cruise ship versus
exactly,
the yacht, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it's not as easy to steer a cruise ship away from the iceberg as it is to steer a boat
Correct.
or even paddle away
Correct.
from it. And I think that's a great analogy. With regards to what's happening in Gaza and with the caravan and the flotilla, even though these efforts seem like they're failing, they're actually, in my opinion, mobilizing a greater public sentiment of action.
Mm-hmm.
So it started with the flotilla. Now it's moved to a caravan. I don't think it's going to stop at the caravan, personally. I think people are going to keep pushing, and pressure is going to continue to mount on these Arab puppet regimes to eventually do something. So this dynamic is not going to subside anytime soon.
Isn't that the hard question we got to start? We got to stop dancing. Why is Egypt doing what it's doing?
Right.
Like, listen, Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, okay? But to be able to commit an atrocity, you need a lot of support, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know who actually argues about that? Israelis, when they talk about the Holocaust,
Yeah.
right? They want to blame that. It's not just Hitler. It was everything else that was around it. And you know what? That's very true. Why aren't you letting aid in?
Yeah.
We're not telling you that you're letting guns in or things like that. God knows that the security apparatus of Egypt is very strong. They have scanners, they have x-rays, they know exactly what's in those semis. Why is it not easy for them to say, hey, look, we have thoroughly vetted this semi. It's crossing the border. There is nothing there you got to worry about. It's going straight to person X, right? We know they can do that.
Yes.
It's the same thing in Jordan. So we got to ask, why are they not doing anything? And we, as of yet, we've always discussed this on the American tableau and about Israel and about that, and they're important. But I think we got to stop being silent about these countries.
You know that Egypt is a dictatorship.
Well,
So people in Egypt don't have any say of what's happening. Actually, all people in Egypt, including me, someone was born and raised in Egypt. I'm against that. But what can they do when they are up against a dictatorship that is funded by the United States? Egypt is the second recipient of the U.S. aid. They give these generals $1.5 billion each year from our tax dollars. So they listen to them. So they are actually protecting the crimes of Israel.
Right.
We're definitely talking about them.
You know, in the end, no matter how much of a puppet you are or not, you still have to run the country you're running. If anything we've learned, right, a lot of these tyrants have fallen, okay, because they kept taking money from outside sources and forgetting the fact and the reality on the ground, okay? And Egypt is actually one of the most vulnerable states right now because of that very fact. I'm very surprised Morsi and things like that have not been able to communicate effectively why they had, even if you're carrying out the duties, okay, you have not been, because it's to me it's an issue of conscience.
No, but exactly what happened in Gaza happened during the revolution, when we had the revolution in Egypt in 2012, and the Egyptian people crossed the border to Gaza. Doctors crossed the border to Gaza. Even officials like the vice president and the prime minister of Egypt at this time, they crossed the border to Gaza the very first day when they started the strike. That's why the strike stopped. Now it's different. Now there is no revolution. There is no freedom in Egypt. There is a dictatorship that you cannot, even if you're an Egyptian if you have an Egyptian ID, you cannot even go like 200 miles close to the border. They have checkpoints. You cannot even go. In order for you, even an Egyptian, to go to Sinai, you have to get a permit from the security apparatus. Yeah, that's in your country. In your country, you cannot do that. So it's like occupied. You know, it was
it's internal occupation. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. I mean, this is the system that the Israelis and the Americans have carefully cultivated in that region, where they've placed managers to kind of safeguard their interests. That being said, I think all of these policies speak more to the vulnerability and the paranoia that these regimes have. They're actually extremely delicate.
and even the Gulf, and even the Gulf. He was sitting there with the Gulf leaders. They were giving him money and investments, and he left without any real change in Gaza, except
Right.
just, lip service. So they could have also told him, tie this to at least stop the war. I'm not saying do like massive changes in the policy, but at least stop the war.
But they
Give
were more
people food.
focused. They were more focused on outmaneuvering each other than actually getting anything
Definitely.
tangible
Definitely.
for the region or for Gaza. The Qataris had to outbid the Saudis so they would not have another blockade.
Yeah.
The Emiratis had to outbid the Qataris. It's this is
But
the,
how do you
the
look?
petty politics of
we
the.
got to look at reality on the ground, and we're not. I'm not. By the way, this is not to say one is, but again, every country also has its own interests, right?
Yes.
So you got to look at the matrix. We're Americans. We're here in America. The fact of the matter is, we want America to succeed. Okay.
Yes.
Obviously, we're blessed to also love Egypt, love Gaza, love Syria, love these things. So we also want them to succeed as well. Okay. But the hard reality is, those guys don't represent Gaza.
No.
Right? That's I think the fundamental problem is that how can we make sure that Palestinian representation is actually there at the table? Because certainly Hamas is never going to do it, and Abu Mazen is never going to do it.
No.
So where is the voice? Where's that organized international voice?
Exactly.
Okay, that can actually say, listen, we're not Hamas, we're not Abu Mazen, but we are Palestine.
Yeah.
And that's the voice I think everybody's craving. I mean, if you want, I'm not. This isn't about. I don't want like victim blame. This isn't victim blaming. This is how do we organize to get a tangible, recognizable voice. Now, there's great news on that front, right? There is in Europe that is organizing, right? Because we're seeing the impact in German parliaments, in French parliaments, and in English parliaments, because you have Palestinians elected. You know what I'm saying? Or people related to
Yeah.
Palestinians elected. There's actually a vote, and there's more organization, in my opinion, in Europe, okay, talking about Palestine than in America. I would love to be able to see some of that mimicked here in the United States, okay? We've seen it successful in so many models, okay, including Syria, that if you can get organized, the tools are there. You can become very effective to advocate for yourself. And very often, it's just a matter of showing that there's a better alternative.
Right.
And that gives me great hope.
Yeah, that's true. But it's still, I mean, even if we go out of the Middle East and don't worry about the interest of anyone in the Middle East, the interest of the United States, we don't think the interest of the United States is the same interest as of Israel. We don't think the war that's happening in the Middle East is an interest for the United States. We feel that even in the economic, when you talk about economy, when you talk about stability, you need the stability in the Middle East for the United States to flourish and for the United States to expand and do all these projects in the region. Now, since years and years, for years and years now, they, as you said, they put Israel first, more than, because if you go, and Trump, as you said, Trump did not visit Israel, and he was sitting with the people that had the money and had the interest for the United States. From outside, it looks fine, because yes, if you want to invest in the Middle East, you cannot ignore Saudi Arabia, you cannot ignore Qatar, you cannot ignore Emirates. You have to partner with them and you have to work with them. But in the same time, you are abandoning your interest by abandoning the people, not just the leaders, the people, the 100 million Egyptians, the millions of Saudis, the hundreds of thousands of people that live in the Gulf area. They're focused on Gaza, and they want the United States to show that they can be trusted as a superpower to bring peace to the region without even being biased by being pro-Israel or pro-Arab. But yeah,
We're pro-human.
Exactly.
It's pro-human. There's no
Exactly.
need for a child to be starving.
Exactly.
There's no need for a mother, while she's trying to get food for her child, to be shot by an Israeli jet, okay, supposedly because there was some potential threat a quarter mile away.
Yes.
So we've been successful in showing that narrative, right?
Yes.
What we need to now show is the alternative, right?
Yes.
That's where I think that's where we can. The one thing I've learned is, and I hate to say this, it gets me so upset because I've seen it with Syrians getting killed and murdered by Assad was not the reason, okay, that Assad fell. Okay, it's not the reason why people were looking. And listen, it's a matrix of events. It's a matrix of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. It's the same issue, right? The death of innocents doesn't change anything. I hate to say that, right? It's the idea of what's the better alternative that people can rally behind, and that's what you see this every single time. Okay?
That's true.
I'm telling you, as a physician, it pains me.
Yeah.
Okay. We do. You know, you're in the medical field.
Yeah.
How often do we know that there's a simpler, easier answer, but it's not the better alternative that people are looking for,
Exactly.
right? How many times do we know that there are bonuses going to CEOs in the healthcare system, okay? But no one's challenging that, but we need to cut costs, so we're going to cut services, into the rural areas. How is that, okay? These healthcare, we're taking that.
Right. You're totally right.
It's the same, we know what the problem is, right? You got to present that better alternative that can be palpable to, and unfortunately, that's the situation. We have to advocate for the people of Gaza by getting that alternative out there in front of people so that they can finally stop killing these innocents.
Yes. But yeah, definitely. So, and that ties to what's happening here and our work here and our reaction as a community to the major events that happen in the United States. And you've seen what's happening in LA. So what's your take about what's happening in LA, all these riots, all this ICE raids that's happening in LA?
Man, it is to me the irony here is what we're seeing now going on in Los Angeles is the issues that led to the things that you're talking about Egypt today, right? In the 50s and 60s, there were these riots and protests, and everything was always about fear and fear and fear. And then, what we're going to give up so that we're not fearful. And by the way, the fear game isn't played by one side only. It's played by both sides. And the idea is it's a competition of who gets the other group scared enough to give up their position for that final fear. And then everybody loses.
Yeah, I call this the tokenization or the politicization of human suffering.
Yes.
So, and this is what the political parties do great at, is
Yes.
at carving out camps and then energizing those camps into the extremes while getting them to ignore the real problems and common issues that both sides face, right? Gavin Newsom is not a saint. We've seen how Gavin Newsom has been running California for the past 6-7 years now. Donald Trump is not a saint, and we know Donald Trump's stance is on the extreme side of immigration policies and whatnot. So when you bring these two tokenizations of issues together and you fail to address the root causes of what is actually diseasing society, that's what leads to riots. That's what leads to hate. That's what leads to people fighting each other on the streets, even though they're on the same team. And it's these guys who are actually putting us apart.
You're totally right. I'm an immigrant myself. I passed through the system of immigration. And for over like 25 years, I hear them, since I was just a recent immigrant, they talk about the immigration system is broken. And I understand this system is very broken and need to be fixed. But for over 25 years, at least in my personal experience, there was no fixing. There was nobody, like, for example, Biden was there for 4 years, and he did nothing.
Nothing. Correct. Nothing.
To the people that are suffering today.
If anything, opened up the borders and made the problem more worse.
The people that were picked up today by ICE, some of them, they lived here in this country for 20 years, 30 years. Some of them, came here when they are toddlers. They're just not born here, and their parents did not have papers, so they stayed when they are 35 years without paper, and they don't speak any other language except here. They are 100% American, except they were not born here. Biden failed those people because he had 4 years of at least looking for those people, for the people that were raised here, like not born here, but at least came here very young. Obama talked about the dreamers and did some work for the dreamers, but actually the work that they did for the dreamers did not really achieve what they really needed.
Obama was also the one who had one of the highest deportation rates.
Because what happened is that he put these dreamers on this database, so now ICE can come to your house and get you after all. So it's just like, what have you done for immigration? And there is a lot of people like me. We actually presented solutions to how to fix the immigration.
Correct.
But
Correct.
nobody listened to it.
Because they're not interested in listening.
They are not. Now they are interested. Now Donald Trump is talking about, hey,
farmers
maybe we'll
and
talk about the farmers. Maybe we're not disrupting the hotels because he owns hotels. And maybe some of his donors are big farms and they want him to do. So now you understand that you need the immigrants. Now you understand that the immigrants are contributing to your economy and your farming and your food. And you want to find exception. But again, he doesn't want to fix it. He wants to keep him as slaves.
If you want my opinion, and I agree. Look, our system of labor, that goes to a whole other issue, right? And that would be like a whole other segment that would take 30 to 40 minutes. But we're looking at immigration, okay?
Yeah.
This is again about fear mongering, etc. One, we have an American system that doesn't encourage American workers to work.
Yes.
It is actually designed for benefits and complaints and structure and things like that. There is no structured design to reward a person to work. They actually have to make the hard choice. If I work,
you are in the capitalist.
This is by the way, this is actually, if you want my opinion, this is the problem with the socialism that was introduced into our system. Because what happens is this: if you're in this state and you earn a certain level of income, you lose all your benefits, right? If I earn 40,000 and I'm single, khalas, I don't get Medicaid anymore. Okay. Then I don't get housing assistance. We haven't designed a system of reward. The harder you work, the more hours you put in, the more of the benefit you come in. Quite the contrary. We're trying to figure out how to make you a 28-hour work week and give you days off that are paid. We're cutting off reimbursements. We regulate. We try to introduce regulation to make everything fair. We overtax to make it fair, and in the end, no one is winning. What we have to do is go back to a system that says this: we are proud that you work. For instance, in the old days, you walk into an American embassy, you have an engineering degree, you come out with a green card, even though you asked for a tourist visa, right? We don't make these things easy anymore, which makes no sense. If I have an advanced degree in every country, including China, okay, they'll give me a specialized visa to stay. They encourage me to stay. They reward me to stay. There's a reward system. So to me, you solve this by one, redesign the American law and labor force to be pro-work, pro-hours placed. Not just about, these issues, but like the more you put in, the more you're going to get in childcare benefits or housing benefits or tax credits, whichever form you want it.
This benefit is part of can be a socialist.
But my point is right now you have to decide that if I work, I lose all those benefits.
Okay.
Right, and then you work and you're being paid $12 an hour.
The benefits are designed to the people that cannot afford to have a living wage. This is.
Yeah, but somehow they can find ways to buy their cigarettes.
No, but there is an issue.
Somehow they can find a way to buy pot.
I would say
I'm not telling you everybody because I know I'm going to get all sorts of what I'm saying is we deal with it, right? I tell I can't afford this, but yet they have a pack of Marlboro cigarettes.
But I would say actually the real issue is also the fact that the wage has not become living anymore. To have a wage of $220,000 now a year is comparable to $80,000 in the 1980s.
That is correct. That's correct.
That is a ridiculous case against American labor, like you said. So, and again, I keep saying this: the sensationalization of these issues, and us failing to actually understand, as a society, as a diseased society, honestly, what are the root causes of this? The root causes of this are the oligarchy that is enriching the CEOs and the elite at the charge of the average American worker who, even though he may not want benefits and may put in more hours, from 40K he'll make 60K and still not be able to pay his kids' bills, right? Or you work in the medical field, right? Now you know the problems with all the healthcare companies and everything that makes your practice harder.
Look.
And this is what Americans don't understand.
Everything in healthcare is inflation, right? Reimbursement to physicians or services performed by nurses. So it's not just about nurses, physical therapists, and things like that. Down by 30 to 40% compared to even 5 years ago.
And I think this is what Americans really need to understand better. Is that Joe Smith in rural Alabama has the same issues as Juan Jose in LA. who has no papers.
Correct.
They can't put food on the table for their kids. They want good education, but public education is becoming a disaster, right? Yet, what the political parties do great at is convincing Joe Smith that Juan Jose is the problem.
And telling Juan Jose that Joe Smith is the problem.
That Joe Smith is a racist and he wants you out of the country.
Correct.
In reality, they face the same exact socioeconomic issues, and these are American socioeconomic issues.
Yes.
This is the way that, and us as Muslims, I believe we have a very, very unique role to play here, that we know the kind of values that our religion espouses. Economic values, social, it's justice. Everything is about justice, promoting social welfare, promoting social well-being. And I believe this society needs a lot of healing.
No, because we are,
Right?
aren't we? We're a nation of immigrants.
Right.
Aren't we? I mean, we're all, right?
Yeah.
Originally from Albania, family originally from Syria, you're originally from Egypt. All of us very proud Americans.
Yes.
All of us vote,
Definitely.
right?
Yes.
All of us have different political positions.
Yes.
We voted for different people in November,
Yeah.
okay? But the fact of the matter is, that's what we are. We are the American street, okay? Including the people from middle America, rural America, however you want to define urban America, however you want to define these politicized terms. The fact of the matter is, that's exactly what pits us against each other.
So how to reframe it again? How to reframe the idea? Like for me, it's very obvious. I've been through the immigration system. The immigration system is broken. It needs to be fixed. Nobody's working to fix it. How to reframe it? Aside from those are criminals, those are coming here, this is an invasion, or the other side is they are racist and want to take it us. We keep dancing around this, and 4 years from now, the same system will be working that's not really working for the people. How to reframe it to the people to understand that we need to sit and we need to take really radical moves to change this broken system.
Again, to me, it's
and
a system of rewards.
Yeah.
So here's what you do. If you study in America and you have an advanced degree, we're going to offer you a green card pathway, okay, to stay in America and find a job here,
Yeah.
okay? We got to start telling our big corporate empires that figure out that for some reason abusing workers in China to give you a cheaper iPhone, okay, or whatever. I don't want to be branding or anything like that because I don't. But I'm not. I use an Android product. But the idea here is that that's not an excuse.
But you're a socialist now, because this is not this.
No, that's not an issue of socialism. It's an issue of protecting the American interest. Because how is it America? How many of us drive cars? How many of us use these machines? How many of us buy computers? Okay,
Yeah.
A lot.
all right.
Everyone,
How many
basically.
chips are made in the United States?
Very
So
few.
what happens to our national security, our missile systems, our guidance systems, our engineers that are graduating if they can't get the chips for their own computers? No, of course it's not.
Yes.
It's the idea is that we need to bring it back here to the United States. And you know what? Some of us are going to have to accept the fact that you know what? You know how expensive these phones are in Europe?
Yeah, they're very expensive.
Are they cheap? They're more expensive
They're more
in Europe,
expensive,
right?
yeah.
They're more expensive in Africa.
Because then they have shipment cost and everything.
and
as
they
well,
have
yeah.
taxes on them, right? And things like that. So I think sometimes we're going to have to accept that this luxury, okay? And there are some really great phones. You don't need the latest version of these phones. Some of these phones can operate a space shuttle from the version 20 versions ago.
The more you speak, the more I'm gonna sign you up for the Green Party.
No, but what I'm saying is it'd be great. Like there's an American company that manufactures.
But that again, do you know that this will change the whole market in the United States? When you go to the dollar store and nothing was $1.25, the cheapest thing is $10. That will change everything. You know, in Europe, that people, use
Nothing's
bikes.
a dollar.
You don't have
Nothing's a dollar at the dollar
I'm
store
saying the
anymore.
whole thing will be more expensive. Like in Europe, not everyone has a car, not everyone has a house. You're totally talking to a totally different marketplace here in the United States if you do this. Because
Well, then maybe we're talking about social restructuring in
No,
general.
but we're talking about immigration, guys.
Right.
I mean, bringing it back to immigration, the idea here is you want to encourage. Like, look, here's the thing: our farmers can't find people to pick fruit out of the trees. Okay, why? Because let's face it, too many of our own kids. If you want my opinion, I think every kid has to spend a month on a farm in America.
Yes.
Okay, just to learn what it means to wake up in the morning. And do a hard day's work and go back at the wage that those guys are picking fruit at.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which is like $4 an hour.
well, let them learn. I mean,
right.
look, there's value in learning that stuff.
Definitely.
Remember, so many things have been taken away, right? We don't have newspapers anymore.
Yeah.
But when we were a kid, we had paper routes.
Yeah.
Okay, We don't have like the little lemonade stand because now we have DoorDash. And these are all great economic things. But my point is the value system for our kids to work, and we've made it more and more illegal for kids to work. So what happens is they become 20, 21, having never had a job, never having a summer job because it's been illegal. I can tell you, my boys, my daughter, when they were looking for jobs when they were 13, 14, 15, even though all around the world people work at 13, 14, 15, we can't hire you. Got to be 16, 17, or 18. Right. Okay, but what happens to the kid? So there's one value system. The other point here is that when you're letting people into this country, if you've been paying your taxes for 7 to 10 years and you can show that, here's a green card.
Right.
Why? Right. Because you're paying taxes, and we need people who pay taxes.
I think you're making a good point here in the fact that we don't have to buy into the rhetoric that the political parties are giving us. We don't have to believe in open borders, all right? But we also don't have to believe in deporting every single human being that came into this country seeking opportunity, not seeking crime, not seeking to turn society upside down, but to understand the human need as to why people come in America in the first place.
Yes.
Right? And it's because they see it as a land of opportunity. It all always comes back, and this is the beautiful thing about our religion too, the mizan, right? The balance, the scale.
Correct.
That everything comes back to that middle path. No, we are not for open borders. We are not for flooding the market with people who are ultimately not going to be able to find jobs, not going to be able to find living, and are going to create clashes within the societies that they're in because they cannot integrate, not because the society doesn't want them to integrate, but because the infrastructure for the integration is not there.
Yeah.
At the same time, we don't want to deprive all of those people of their livelihood and their entire life of 20, 30 years in this country. Yes. So there has to be as Ghanem said, as you said, a radical rethinking of how to do politics in America, because we are fighting each other and a house divided cannot stand.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And just for our viewers, because I know that some of you may not be Muslim, but remember, we understand that there are people from, Latin America and other countries, but for those of us that come from Middle Eastern countries, we get vetted a lot coming in. It's not even if you're already American, you get vetted a lot coming back into this country. Mm-hmm. So you're always on the extra, the extra security. You're always on the extra interview. To get your green card takes a lot longer. Things that So for our viewers to understand that when you have a name like Abdul Majid or like Ahmed or like Muhammad, suddenly, the challenges on the immigration, just by your name, becomes challenging. We respect what other people are going through. But you didn't give us your solution.
No, there is a lot of solutions. And for me, I think the most important thing, as you said, understanding that people invested in this country. When you invest your 20s and 30s, this is the most productive years in your life. You invested it here in the United States. And for the misconception that people think that if you are an illegal immigrant, if you don't have a status, you are tapping into all these resources. No, you don't. You're not tapping into anything. You cannot get all this, any aid, you cannot get anything if you don't have status. But you're still paying taxes because whatever they take tax from anyone as long as you're working. So because the tax will be taken. So you have people that invested their 20s and 30s in this country. You have to look at these people and see, okay, if you don't have a criminal history, you have a path with us.
No, absolutely.
You have to stay here. Also, they have programs right now that we are bringing other people, new people from outside the United States that's never been the United States, through lotteries, through other programs. Mm-hmm. And you ignoring the people that lived here for 20 years. Right. So let's if we are taking 50,000 new family every year through this program, why don't we take 50, give immigration to give green card to 50,000 undocumented family here in the United States, if they are paying taxes, if they don't have any criminal history. Imagine if you go to the people that been here for 20 years and 30 years and tell them, you know what, for every single year you lived in the United States, you're going to pay $1,000 or $2,000. So each of those people will be paying the country $40,000, $50,000. Even if they don't have the money right now, they can work and make a plan to pay it. You will get billions of dollars from inside this country, and you get those people at track, and you give them the freedom to live the real life and continue, because these people are not. They became. I mean, this is one of the countries. I've been to a lot of countries. You go to Europe, and maybe you were born and raised in France, but if you're not white, you're still in a ghetto or in different, people here, we have a very organic system of integration. You find the same street, you have Chinese, you have Lebanese, you have Arabs, you have Latinos living in the same street in harmony, and all of them are Americans celebrating the same American holidays.
Yeah.
But we have to keep this, and this is the good thing about this country. But the problem is, again, there's two things. First, no one of the people talking about immigration understand the basics of immigration. I see senators and Congress people talking about immigration on TV, and I will laugh because I was inside the system. They don't know anything about this. So if you don't know about the system, you cannot fix it. The second thing is, there is an interest for some political powers and economic powers in this country to keep immigrants in the shadow, to keep them without the rights to do it. They cannot join a union. They cannot call for anything. If you hire them and
They
not
cannot
paying
vote.
them, and you hire them and not
they're not
paying
citizens.
them.
They
don't
can't-
care.
I mean, even
And
if they had a
even
path to
care about
citizenship,
if you hire them and not pay them enough, they cannot go and sue you or do anything against you. They want to keep. This is why they want to keep them in the hotels. They want to keep them in the farms. They want to keep them. So Trump said, and we're not going to do raids on the farms or on the hotels. So what that means? I want you to stay undocumented, working for me, and in any time, on any moment, I can go and grab you.
Yeah, but
instead of telling them,
But mind you, that's on the right and the
no,
left.
but I'm saying instead
I
of
mean,
telling, no, it's not about
because I can tell you all these Hollywood movies that are made.
That's right.
All the people that are building all these structures and things
Yeah.
like that, they're undocumented immigrants.
agree with
Okay,
you.
who don't get paid.
But-
okay,
but if-
by the very bleeding hearts that tell them, well, I feel
No.
sorry for you, but I
you-
need my palace much
but
nicer.
If you are the president of the United States and you have the power, and you saw with your own eyes that there is value for immigration in the tourist, in the hotel system, there is value for immigrants in the farm system. Why don't you have an executive order to say, if you show that you are working in the hotel industry or in the farms industry for 5 years, we will give you a temporary visa, we'll give you a protection. He can do that, but he deliberately not doing anything to keep them in the shadow.
But by the way, the wheel does not need to be reinvented.
Yes, that is what I'm listening.
I'm a U.S. history teacher. In the 1920s,
Yes,
the United States had visa programs for seasonal workers
Yes.
from Latin America,
we still do.
right? We had programs to integrate Latin American workers into the United States
Yeah.
in the 1920s, and they got scrapped because of sensationalization.
yeah, and you have two
Right.
presidents.
But we still have work permits.
You have
we
two-
do have work permits in the United States.
We do.
Okay, I mean, so
No,
the
and you have
system. You want my opinion? The
Go ahead.
system is not broken. The rules are not enforced correctly. Okay, they're enforced haphazardly. One group wants to enforce getting deported. Okay,
Yes.
like let me put it this way. Okay, a lot of these issues that we're talking about deportation with ICE, there are valid criminal guys. Okay,
Definitely.
there are valid people that are here illegally that should not be here, that came in across the border without following the rules. You need to get deported.
Yes.
If Marco Rubio and his team didn't waste their time on Mohammed Khalil,
Yes.
a green card resident,
Yes.
and detained him,
Exactly.
okay, did not go to that roofer, that guy with the Nicaraguan, who was a
The
Trump
father,
voter
yeah.
in the
Meltdown,
Keys,
yeah.
in the Florida Keys,
Yes,
took away half his workforce, okay, because those guys were hardworking, right? But if they do go and sweep up a lot of the guys that were creating problems on the New York City subways or overcrowding and creating disruptions in different areas, etc., no one would be complaining because, but we pick. We're trying to we try to make sensation. We
it's
pick
about
the wrong
the
people.
optics. It's
Right?
about the
Yeah.
optics of what you enforce.
Right.
And you have, as you said, you have the history. You have two presidents, a Republican president,
And then Biden was like, everybody come in, but no
No.
problem, no pathway. No, just come in, we'll figure it out. Come on, what the? I mean, right?
I totally agree with you. And actually, that what's happening is he would let them go through the border, register their names, take them and let them wander in the country, and then have all this like logistics around them. They have to register every week or every month. They have this
create more
anchor bracelet.
useless bureaucracy,
So yeah, use
you know.
bureaucracy, and in order you don't have really any paths for them.
Right.
We have two presidents. We have a Republican president, which is Reagan, and you have a Democratic president, which is Clinton. Both had a massive amnesty, and it was based on if you were a farmer, if you're a farmer, if you work in a farm for 10 years, bring a certificate that you bring in working for 10 years and we'll give you a citizenship. And this it did work. It gave millions, I don't know how much, I don't want to exaggerate, but at least tens of thousands of immigrants, they found a path forward through this Amnesty International. And it was bipartisan from two, and nobody can say anything about Reagan from the Republican Party. Like, he's the god for the Republican Party, and he has done it. But he had the guts to do it. Now Donald Trump is not doing it. And now what we see in this country right now, that it's turning into a police state. Have you seen what happened to the senator today? I will show you that. We'll show the people on the screen. They will see it. So you have a sitting senator that was dragged and was arrested inside a federal government building. What do you think about this? Like, this is something I would say
I find this no different than someone who tried to run for Congress as Democrat, who got escorted out of a Democratic meeting he was invited to, for also absolutely no reason.
No, I understand.
All right, and again, because my point is the tragedy here is it's not about this; it's about we've lost our sense of civility. The fact of the matter is we've lost too many people. Like, for instance, I come from a more conservative side. You come from a more liberal side. You come from a conservative liberal.
I'm in the middle.
Right in the middle. But however it goes, but alhamdulillah, we're civil. We work together,
yes.
and we cooperate very effectively. And I think the critical thing here is that our leaders need to stop with the sensationalization and the blaming and the pointing of the finger. I was really disappointed in watching Republican senators say, oh, well, Padilla was wrong, and Democratic senators saying, well, he was absolutely right, when what should have been said is a senator of the United States has to be respected.
Yes.
Their authority has to be respected, and the senator also should respect a process by which he can privately ask those questions of Kristi Noem. I'm not a fan of all her policies. I'm not a fan of what's happening in Los Angeles. I personally believe it's unconstitutional to mobilize the military against U.S. citizens.
And the federal judge does agree with you, by the way.
Right, against U.S. citizens without the request and consent of the parties affected. Neither the mayor of Los Angeles, nor the governor of California, nor, by the way, the chief of police of Los Angeles, or the Oakland County, not Oakland County, but the L.A. County Sheriff's Department, or any major infrastructure request or aid or assistance.
Yeah.
So our soldiers are there to protect our freedom. Right, and we don't need to stress them by getting them involved in our internal politics. Their life is stressful enough. We got to respect their willingness to sacrifice their lives for us, and not force them to be sitting in between us to try to resolve our problems.
And I think quote from Benjamin Franklin comes to mind here that says, "A nation that will sacrifice its liberty for security deserves neither and will lose both."
Correct.
So what do you say about
I agree with you.
The what's happening on DC on the Flag Day for the army parade for Trump.
Trump, I think what essentially ended up happening is Trump saw the military parades that the Russians and the Chinese put, and he said, that looks really cool.
Yeah.
And we need something like that here. And then he went and he said, let's do something like that here. It's not nearly going to look as grand or as spectacular because the Russians and the Chinese paid their soldiers for 2 years just to prepare for a parade.
Yeah.
American soldiers are usually professional soldiers who are constantly either training or dealing with some sort of specialty. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's boasting, showmanship, the typical Trump style of putting up, nice shows essentially for the people.
But again, this is
but
a fundamental. Yeah, go ahead.
But it's also the 200th. I can't. Is it the 200th or 250th anniversary
250th,
of the United States military, guys? So
But that's not, we all know this is not the reason.
No.
We know.
Look, but my point. Look, look. Is there showmanship? 100%.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is there ego? 100%.
Yes.
But is there also something to celebrate? 100%. Okay, in my opinion, regardless of that issue, it's not like he decided to put this parade last month or the month. He picked a specific date, a date that everybody can accept, And honestly,
it's his birthday.
well, okay, I mean, but my point
So
is, it happens to be the
And
250th.
he talked about that 4 years ago. He talked about
But
how
he didn't do it 4
admires-
years ago.
I know, but now he has the tools to do it. And now,
No, he has the reason to do it. He's got to.
Okay.
He's not going to. I don't think he'll do it next year or the year after that. I
We'll
think
see.
I think. I'm
we'll
not,
see. That's perfect. I understand what you're saying, but
I mean,
at
if
the
you
same
tell me
time-
next year military parade, I'll be okay. I'll be like, this is too much. But honestly, we need to celebrate our military.
I think
But
the
at
way
the same time, there is a nationwide protest under the name No Kings
no, Kings,
happening the same day on Saturday. Are you going to?
Am I going to attend which one?
the protest,
It's protest
not the
everywhere.
parade.
Not the parade.
I don't
Why
think
would I
you're-
attend the
not invited.
protest?
You're not. What do you say?
Like what?
But
Is,
like,
I'm not. Hey,
No. What I'm saying is you're not.
Why do I need to attend the
you're
protest?
not concerned that your country is turning into a police state.
I'm always concerned.
I think it's
turning
been a
into
police state. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, we've been a police state.
Okay.
We've armed policemen to the tooth for the past 40 years.
Hold on. Have
This
we
is a
heard of
bipartisan
Have
effort.
we
It's
heard of
not-
the Patriot Act? Anybody
Yeah.
heard of the Patriot Act? That's a police state measure.
Right.
Yeah.
FISA courts.
FISA court, right? Investigations coming into masajid to
then
find
this-
out who may be an extremist.
Yeah.
No,
Are you
also
telling me?
you see that
So right,
like- I
we
thought-
never. Did we organize
No,
all
no.
these protests against these other guys?
You're totally right. And
I mean,
I was actually when I read this headline on social media, I thought this is the Onion News. They found out that the University of Michigan hired special forces to track the students
Of course.
and follow them in plain clothes.
Which students, by the way, out of curiosity?
Muslims.
Which students?
Muslim
right?
students.
Right. So
Muslim and
So-
also Jewish students that were actually protesting against.
correct,
Yeah.
because
So,
now
yeah.
they've changed side.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'm a U of M graduate. I was
Yes.
so disappointed. Yani, this is my disappointed. Is like so my value as a Wolverine,
Yeah.
as a graduate, okay, as family members who have graduated, is because we don't fall on the political spectrum that's acceptable to the University of Michigan. I mean, come on. I mean, that's shameful.
No,
That-
yeah.
right?
That's something you think will happen in China and Egypt and something like that. That they not just the regular police, they hire special
Right.
forces.
And how
Yeah.
many of the people on the board of trustees in the U of M infrastructure are Democrats?
Yeah, it's
a very democratic
it is,
institution, right?
it is.
So my point is, this is where I don't like this point. You talked about Padilla.
Yeah.
We need to stop. Both sides
Yes.
need to stop with the hypocrisy.
Yes.
When you have these riots on January 6th in Washington, D.C., that was criminal. That was wrong. Okay? When you have these riots in Chicago breaking down Michigan Avenue, okay? Or in Wacona, what is it, Wisconsin, where they had the riots there, or what's going on in L.A., that's all. If you're breaking the law, that's wrong. You have every right to protest. I don't care what you're protesting for or what you're supporting. You know what you're for or against, right? The United States is built on that principle. There should be no shame. There should be no. Hey, if you want to burn an American flag, which I'm totally against, but you know what? That's your freedom of expression. That's your right. Okay. You want to disagree with me being Muslim? That to me, that's not Islamophobia. That's freedom of expression. But then I have every right then to disagree with you and then express myself. Right? Yeah.
Correct.
That's my point. Is we need to stop with what it is or what you're doing is wrong. But somehow when I do the same thing, it's right. And that's we see that on both sides.
No, but what can a community?
By the
or
way,
an
if there was a
activist-
different president and a different thing, I would be arguing the exact same thing in the opposite way.
No, what
So-
I'm saying is, as a community or as activists or as people trying to even just speak out, what can you do? What is your daily struggle to make sure that you don't wake up, at least for me, so I don't wake up tomorrow, I find myself in another Egypt here in the United States.
I think you have to teach. The average American does not know American civics very well.
Yeah.
The average American, even, and I'm sorry to say, even the activists are not well informed on the structures that this country was founded upon in terms of civics, in terms of law, in terms of governance. I told you I'm a history teacher. Even I wasn't informed on a lot of these things before I started teaching U.S. history, to be honest with you. There's a lack of knowledge for the average American about what rights are afforded to them and how American society is supposed to function. We need to go back to cultivating those basic values for Americans. Right now, we are cultivating polarization, we're cultivating hate, and every cause that comes on, we latch onto without doing due diligence on it.
Okay.
Right?
Perfect.
And both sides find something, and they because their headmaster, the king, says this bad, okay, then we follow the king. The whole mob goes with the king, right? Where's the free thinking for the average American? Where is, okay, let me pause. Let me take at least 30 minutes to think about what I just read and what I just saw. Let me cross-reference it with a couple other things. Let me do some research, and then I can come to a sensible conclusion. Let me talk to people who think differently, actually. I think one of the worst phenomena that has happened to American society is echo chambers.
There you go.
Yes.
We all talk to ourselves.
That's how you stop America from becoming Egypt. You get rid of the echo chambers. You get rid of these little isolated pockets
bubbles.
where no one talks anymore, where every conspiracy concept seems to fit.
And the algorithm is
Right or left.
designed to keep you in that,
That's
by the
correct.
way.
Yeah.
The Facebook, the X, the Instagram algorithm feeds onto that paranoia that you have.
Speaking of X,
So this is, by the way, they're working with the state on
Yes,
this
yeah.
to push that, right?
But
this is how
yeah.
I think that's where Americans need to take the fight, to be honest with you.
Speaking of X, and maybe we end on that. What do you think was going to happen between Elon and Trump?
This is like a kids fighting in kindergarten. It's, you know, I think it's more serious than people think. I think Elon was, we mentioned Doge in the beginning. We'll wrap it up with Doge against. Elon went in very idealistic, thinking that he could clean up 250 years of machinery and bureaucracy, and came to a very hard reality check that's just not how it works, right? I agree with Elon on that principle, by the way. I think America is drowning in debt. I think America is spread out too thin, kind of like the Roman Empire was right before its collapse. And there definitely needs to be solutions to that. But Elon came in very hard, and he saw that Thomas Massey described this very well. He said, imagine you're in an intersection and you have three different cars coming at each other and no one's willing to stop. He said the first car is Congress, which basically just stonewalls you all the time and doesn't allow anything to get done. The second one is Doge, which wants to do these radical cuts and everything. And the third one is Donald Trump, who just cares about his ego.
Yeah.
They're going to crash. No one is going to want to give way to the other. You know? And that's exactly what ended up happening, in my opinion.
Yep.
Well, what do you think?
Well,
You bring it up.
no, I like when they fight. I don't like both of them. I think both of them are point out what's wrong with the society when you have someone is hoarding all these billions of dollars, and when he started to cut, he cuts from people that really need the money. I mean, there is so many ways to cut in this federal government, and especially you have huge contracts with the government. You know that tons of these contracts are inflated contracts, and there is so much corruption in that. I would start with that before cutting Medicaid on poor people in some rural area. But anyway,